So, for those of you that are working through the Simon Necronomicon with the hopes of doing gate walking and such, of course, there's plenty of different preliminary things that you should be working at. I'm trying to keep my cat under control here because she likes to walk in front of the camera all the time. Now, one of those things is working with your watcher, and keep an eye out for the cat as she continues to come back and pester me again and again and again and again. But a lot of people, when they start to work with spirits and they start to work with big systems like the Simon Necronomicon or, the Kabbalah stuff with HGA or any invocations with, like, the 72 goetic spirits or whatever, they put too much emphasis and they put too much pressure on themselves and their expectations when it comes to wanting to see, hear, feel, sense, smell results, right? That might be overstretching what your experience is going to be, especially as a beginner, and you got to understand that these things are built with time. Everybody wants to go to the gym and start lifting 300, 400-pound weights, but it's going to take a long time to get there, right? You might have to start off with 5 to 10 pound, hand weights, whatever, and you'll eventually work your way up. But these things require time, and a lot of times we push ourselves and we get disappointed, and then we end up quitting the idea because, oh, this crap ain't real because I can't see the spirit that I put into the triangle over there when I did an invocation or whatever. This is a bunch of mumbo jumbo blah. No, your senses are not as well in tuned yet. So when it comes to doing like the invocation of the watcher, for example, this is something that you are going to have to go with. You go with the flow and you roll with the punches. So on a regular basis, you should be invoking your watcher, every full moon, doing the offerings. Of course, you have the preliminary invocation of the watcher first, and then the normal invocation of the watcher every moon after that, where you burn, pine, sandalwood, or cedar incense, or other herbs if you can get them, if those are not applicable, or you don't have access to them, stuff like that. Now, when you do the invocation, you have the sword of the watcher and you thrust it into the dirt in the ground or in like the dirt of a pot or something like that. And then you sit and you meditate. You notice how the book doesn't tell you to look at a certain quadrant of the circle, right? It's not saying like your watcher should appear right in the north, even though your watcher bowl is in the northeast. Or, your watcher should appear right behind the bowl in the northeast. At least if I remember correctly, it doesn't state a particular location where it said the watcher will manifest. That's because these things are roll with the punches and you kind of figure it out and it happens for yourself. After doing the invocation of the watcher, my suggestion, especially at first, is sit and meditate. This means close your eyes and try to clear your mind. Count your breathing, right? This is where meditation and metacognition comes in, of course. I talk about this stuff all the time because it is so goddamn pertinent to magic, right? The more that you meditate, the more you're going to be able to open up your senses to being able to feel different things and sense different things that are beyond the five senses. Because our subconscious is the antenna that spirits can communicate through. When I'm talking to a friend or, a family member or whatever, I'm talking to them and I hear them through my ears. That's because they're other physical beings. Spirits are from another dimension, I guess you could say, or another plane of existence, and therefore they are not physical and stuff, and they communicate to us through psychic impressions, which means those psychic impressions don't come through our ears, most likely, unless it's an extremely powerful spirit that's able to manifest itself, which takes a crap ton of energy, which is why it doesn't happen that often, and they can make a bump in the night or they can make a disembodied voice happen just like you're talking to your mother, right? So we need to pay attention with our minds, which means we need to clear our minds through meditation, with counting your breathing and feeling that there's that free space that you're not filling up with mind chatter, right? Your mind voice has to be quiet, right? So when you're doing this kind of stuff, you need to be quiet and go inward and focus on your breathing, and you might start to feel a certain emotion or an impression or some kind of vibe that's different. And the more and more that you do this, when you work like regular invocations, which is also why if you're just doing the if you're working your way towards the gate walking and you're doing the preliminary invocation of the Watcher, you should be doing like the 50 names of Marduk, you know, on and off, on a regular basis, because you're gonna attune yourself to the energies of these things. Like working with the 50 is gonna get your mind into that mode of, this is the kind of flavor of stuff I'm looking for. These are the vibes that I'm tapping myself into. These are the feelings that I'm tapping myself into. It's like when you start, driving like a new car, you have to get the feel of it. It's going to be different from your old car, especially if it's the first time you're ever driving a car. You really got to get a feel for it. Working with the 15 names of Marduk, when you just invoke, like, let's say, number 4, Barasha Kushu, who's the miracle worker. Then I know that there's another one, I can't remember it off the top of my head, that helps with invocations. There's the spirit of the Nurgak that helps with invocations too, especially if you're doing this working with the Watcher and trying to feel his vibes and whatnot. Then of course that might be helpful. But you don't just rely on working with the Watcher alone and say, oh, once a month, I hope I feel something. That's why we go to the gym several times a week, because we want to build muscle. So we got to do it on a more regular basis. You got to meditate often, hopefully daily if possible, and then do invocations. I remember back when I started working with the Simon Necronomicon, me and my lady were doing like one of the 50 names of Marduk every night to get into this kind of thing. And it might require that, like, the more energy and effort you put in, the more you're going to get out of it. So if you're working at the beginning of your gatewalking preparations with learning the ritual formula in the Book of Calling, and then trying to invoke your Watcher, you should also be looking into the Necronomicon spellbook and the 50 names of Marduk, because that's going to help tune your energy into where it needs to be in order to make your invocation of the Watcher successful. And then you can expand that to all your other rituals of the Simon Necronomicon, from the gate walking to, opening Ganzir and eventually opening Arzir, and any of the other like things that happen when you gate walk, when you get, other spirits that might be trying to communicate with you outside of ritual, or when the ups and downs of gate walking happen, where the energies of the different Chaldean planets expose you to fix this and work on that. And otherwise, that's gonna, it'll probably hit you like a truck anyways, but it's gonna be a lot easier to discern, yo, this is gate walking stuff, and yo, this is just my mind, bothering me. So, moral of the story, work at it, get as much time in as you can, meditate a bunch, and work with the system as often as you can, and your results will probably come better, stronger, and faster. Good hunting.